Welcome to the Lentil Intervention Podcast, talking all things movement, whole food nutrition and environmental wellness with your hosts, Ben and Emma.
Hello everybody, welcome to episode 4. My name is Ben Alderberg, coming to you from Auckland, and I am joined by Emma Strutt in Queensland. Hello Emma.
Hi Ben, how are you going?
I'm good. Right, so what have we got on this episode? We are bringing you a really valuable conversation with the wonderful Shamiz Kachwalla. Many of you will know him from High Carb Health, but Emma, he's actually got a much broader story.
He's got a really powerful story, yep. So Shamiz was happily living his life in 2012. He was teaching in Japan at the time when health issues struck. He was actually diagnosed with ulcerative colitis and spent about 6 weeks in hospital, really struggling with the associated complications of that. Now, he was facing the possibility of lifelong medication and surgery, but one fateful internet search by his mum changed his health trajectory completely. Now, I don't want to give too much away in the intro, but Shamiz was able to turn his health around completely and has been happy and healthy and thriving for the last 7 years. And as you mentioned, Shamiz now helps hundreds of other people around the world with their health because he started a business, High Carb Health, that he co-founded with his brother, Shakul. This is a really remarkable story of recovery, and it serves as a reminder about the power of diet and lifestyle.
Cannot wait. So let's head on over and get him on the call. Shamiz, welcome to the show.
Thanks for coming on, Shamiz.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. It's great to be here, and I think you guys are really inspirational people and spreading a really good message here, and I think I'm excited to share my story with you guys.
Oh, that's awesome. So early on and already such good feedback, so really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're making me blush.
Shamiz, now you have an amazing story to tell in terms of a very personal journey that you've experienced, and we're obviously going to go into that. But like all good stories, let's start at the very beginning and tell us a little bit about the kind of life you used to live in terms of what you used to eat and so on.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess I was like everyone else. Thought I needed lots of protein and meat to, I guess, be fit and healthy. And I used to actually go to the gym, thinking that I was healthy and fit. I actually was not very fit at all. I had, I guess, just a little bit of size on me, but actually was just, water retention and all that kind of stuff. But I didn't eat a very good diet before. It was very generalized. I didn't really know anything about nutrition. I didn't actually even bother looking into nutrition as well when I did go to the gym. I did stay away from protein powders and things because that never really sat with me that well. But I never really thought about nutrition. It was just, more meat heavy than anything. Thinking I needed protein and stuff. And, I never really had any health issues as such when I was growing up. And I think asthma was the only thing, but that kind of drifted away when I got older. But there was nothing really.
But your comment now, saying this now, that you weren't that as fit as you thought you were, and you weren't eating as healthy as one would think. That's in hindsight, isn't it? That wasn't at the time. At the time, you thought, no, I'm doing what I should be doing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Definitely. As everyone else does, everyone else thinks that they're eating healthy, and until you kind of go through what someone eats. Until you go through what someone eats, you actually are very surprised, and that it's very unhealthy.
That's right.
When you break it down.
So back in 2012, you experienced, is experience the right word, ulcerative colitis. Tell us about that. How did that come about? You were in Japan at the time as well, weren't you?
Yes, I was in Japan. So I graduated in 2010 when the recession was on. So let's just go one back a little bit. I did a Bachelor of Design specializing in interior architecture. I graduated in 2010. And there was absolutely no jobs going at the time. So I was kind of a bit stuck. And I've always dreamed of going to Japan and being a teacher. I'd been to Japan 3 times before that as an exchange student with my high school. So I already knew how to speak Japanese, and I loved the country. I love Japan. I still do. And, I thought, hey, well, maybe I can go and teach English there. So I obviously applied for the job in 2011, early 2011, and that's when the tsunami happened, right?
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
I was in Hong Kong when that happened, actually.
Oh, wow.
But that's a different story.
Yeah. So the tsunami happened. I didn't get the job, so I was, what's the word for it? They had a backup person, so I went for the interview and stuff, and I was, just a backup person if someone else didn't want to go.
Yeah.
So that's what happened. Someone else didn't want to go after the tsunami and earthquake, so I got the call up. And in July, end of July, I went to Tokyo and had the introduction and stuff over there, and started my journey teaching English in Japan. I didn't have any other previous teaching experience. It was a pretty new thing for me, and it was through JET program. Some of your listeners may know about that, but it's a ALT, so assistant language teacher, and you kind of help around with the main teacher teaching the Japanese kids English.
Yeah. So new job, new country. How were the stress levels?
Yeah, I loved Japan. So I'd been there. It wasn't a new experience for me in terms of the culture. I absolutely love Japanese culture, so that was fine. I think definitely a new job. Excited, to be honest, because your first job is always like the most exciting, and especially when it's teaching the kids. Now, I've always been a student in Japan, so I knew what student life was like, but I never knew what teaching life was like. So it was really exciting. I was looking forward to it and giving my best and giving back to Japan after the tsunami as well, and helping as much as I could. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to go there.
Yeah.
So life going pretty good, I guess, post the tsunami, but you were settling in. You know.
Definitely, it was a roller coaster actually, because the ground was still shaking when I got there. There was so many aftershocks. I think the biggest aftershock I experienced was 7.6, and it was pretty crazy, to be honest. Yeah, and the whole house was shaking. But as you know, in Japan the houses are pretty good, earthquake proof, I'd say, and it was just moving with the earthquake, and I was like, oh, here we go again.
Wow.
So that was quite an interesting experience as well, because you wake up in the middle of the night and just shaking, everything's shaking, and you're just like, oh, what's going to happen? Luckily nothing, the house wouldn't break or anything, because they're pretty much just, I call them cardboard houses, because there's no insulation, or there's nothing to it really. It just bends and moves with the earthquake.
Yeah.
Just I think it was I got into the school around August, and this was amazing. I had a school of only 50 kids, and the whole school was only 50 kids, and it was a countryside school, and it was like family. It was that cool. So I got in there nice and easy, and really enjoyed the time that I was working there, and got along with all the teachers and all the kids and stuff, and obviously was eating lots of sushi. And this is, the top of the top, the best quality sushi. You go to the bar and you go to the head chef, and, he cuts you up some really nice fine tuna and salmon, and, thinking I needed my omegas, I'd eat all those foods. And I think that was probably the biggest downfall. And I think looking back, the radiation that was in the in the water after Fukushima potentially could have had something to do with me getting sick as well. But
so before you got sick, you just mentioned all the fish and whatnot. Did you have any bouts of food poisoning or anything like that to kind of set things off, or how did it actually come about?
I didn't actually face food poisoning. What happened was that as the months went by, so it was I obviously came in 2011, so it was the next year, May next year, where I started to feel a little bit sick and I guess tired mostly. And then I started seeing that my stool was not very nice, or it was just not normal.
Yeah.
And that's when I kind of decided to go to the GP and get it checked. And it was quite hard because the doctors didn't know how to speak English very well.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a challenge trying to figure out all the medical terms. But that was, it was hard to talk. So the doctor just said, okay, we'll just get you checked. So he said, you can go to the hospital and they'll do a colonoscopy. They'll do a camera check and see what's wrong. And I went to hospital. I grabbed all my stuff. And, I had a scooter back then as well, so it was quite easy for me to travel to and from if I needed to go anywhere. Yeah. So I traveled from from my house to the hospital. It was probably about a half an hour scoot. And, so they checked me in hospital, and they didn't diagnose me on that day, but they said that you have some kind of inflammation in your rectum or in your bowel, because there was obviously blood in my stool. And that was a bit scary to see. And
at that early point with the whole Fukushima radiation, the I don't want to get in trouble here, but the supposed cover up and not really, exposing a lot of the reality of what the country was experiencing in terms of international exposure. But was there any thought at the time that, hell, maybe you've been exposed, or maybe you've eaten fish, like you say, that there has been exposed to radiation in the water, which, to this day, there's still a lot of radioactive water flushing into the sea. And was there any thought that maybe it was related to that, to the nuclear sort of, I wouldn't call it a fallout as such, but, what was happening at Fukushima?
Absolutely none. There was not a thought of that at all. There was actually nothing that spoke danger. None of the government was saying anything about food, and it was all pretty hush-hush. Like, no one talked about the tsunami or even the radiation, or especially the nuclear power plant. No one talked about it. I mean, I think rice was one of the biggest issues because a lot of rice came from Fukushima as well, and they'd been exposed. But no, there was absolutely no thought of that. It didn't come to my head. We didn't actually know about the nuclear power plant disaster at that time.
Seriously?
So,
wow.
Yeah. No.
Okay, that was one of the first things that hit the news.
Yeah, I didn't know
abroad,
about
that is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. So this was a complete shock. This was how has this come about, basically?
Correct, definitely. I mean, I'd never even heard. So they diagnosed me with ulcerative colitis, mild colitis, I think it was, when I first went into hospital. And no, I had zero idea what this disease was. And I was like, I've never been sick in my life, and how has this suddenly happened to me? And I think this is pretty common for people when they get this disease. Like, they suddenly kind of like, what is this that's happened to me? So it was a bit of a shock for me to kind of, think that, hey, I'm in hospital and, like, what am I doing here, kind of thing, because I don't eat unhealthy, So, and I think also they, when they checked me, they said, oh, you're going to have to stay here for a week in hospital. And I was like, what? Like, they wanted to observe me. And so they said, go get your clothes, and go get some stuff, and then come back, and you're going to be staying here for a week. So I thought, okay, wow, that's pretty crazy. So I obviously scooted back home to get all my clothes and my toothbrush and all that kind of stuff. And obviously communication in Japan is pretty poor, so it's hard to know what to do and what to get. So I didn't really know. So how long I was going to stay there, I had absolutely no idea. So as the kind of as that week went by, I didn't actually get any better. So I think they put me on antibiotics, as they normally do in Asia, when you have some kind of infection or some kind of problem.
Or pretty much anywhere, to be fair.
Yeah, anywhere. Yeah. So I was for a week, and they observed me, and my condition didn't actually get better. It actually got worse. And I kind of, told the doctors, like, hang on a second, what's going on here? And they just said, hang fire. We still need to observe what's going on with your body. So there was a nurse that used to come around and check, my bowel movements every day, and she used to write it down and frequency and all that kind of stuff. And it started off at about 2 to 3 a day, and sort of started going up a bit to 4 and 5. And
so this was accelerating quite fast.
It was. So it happened in that week. And obviously, the food that they were feeding me was actually supposedly for colitis patients or Crohn's patients too. So that was, it was that rice porridge. It was half of a raw egg, and it was miso soup, and there was fish as well.
So like
that was
low residue, high protein.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah. So that's what they were feeding me, and I asked the doc, one of the docs, I was like, can you, how you have those Yakult? It's very famous in Asia, the Yakult yogurt.
Yeah.
I was smashing those down because obviously thinking they had lots of probiotics or whatever that they have in them. So I was having like 2 or 3 a day, and I was like, yeah, this stuff's good, chuck it down. Not knowing that was probably making me a lot worse, and now obviously I know that that's probably what made me worse as well as the medications and things. But so so because I started to get worse and worse, the doctors were kind of like, okay, let's just try putting him on some medication. So that was anti-inflammatory drugs, which was 5-ASA or mesalazine, is what they call it. And while keeping me on the same food, week by week, I just kept getting worse and worse. And I obviously had to ring up my school and say, hang on a second, I'm going to be in hospital now for a bit longer than a week. And they were kind of concerned, saying, okay, when are you going to be back? Because the students, waiting for you and stuff. And I didn't know. I didn't have an answer for them as well. And as the weeks went by, the drugs didn't work either. So I went from 4 to 5 to then 7 to 8 times in a day. Yeah. The second week and the third week, and that's when things started to kind of, strike me that why am I not getting better? Like, I'm in the hospital, I trust these doctors, and there's always you have that faith in doctors, and you go, right, I'm going to get better soon, and I didn't think of it at the time. I was just like, okay, well, whatever they're giving me, this should be good for me. I should come around in no time. And I think by the third week, I was really concerned. So I called my parents on Skype, and I said, hey guys, I'm in hospital. And they're like, what are you doing there?
I've been here for 3 weeks.
Yeah, you should have been out of there already, or whatever. What's going on? Obviously being concerned parents, they didn't really understand, and I said, doctor's got it, he's going to give me some more drugs and stuff, and it should all settle down. And little did they know that wasn't the case. And so the fourth week went by, and from 7 to 8 went to 10 to 12, and then they kind of said, okay, we need to up the dosage. So then they introduced some steroids, prednisone, but that didn't work either. So the dosage of prednisone went higher and higher. So I think they started off me with 20 mg, and then I went to 40 mg, and then 60, and then 80. And it still wasn't doing anything.
An absolute dangerous territory there with all those drugs.
Yeah, and so I actually, in the 4th and 5th week, I kind of told my mum and dad, like, please come, So I think they came the next day in the 4th week, or even I think it was the middle of the 3rd week. They came, and they flew over the next day, and I was so glad that they came, because they saw me, and they're going, you've lost so much weight, and like, how? This is crazy. So I think at that time I lost about 10 kilos. So I weighed in probably around about 72, 73, and dropped down to about 60. And
it really looks like you lost more, because for those the listeners that, including myself, I've seen you present, and for those that have seen you present, or even go on your website, which we'll get to a little later on, you've got some photos, and man, it really shows you were struggling. You were not in a good place.
Definitely. So as a couple more weeks went by, I lost even more weight. So it was around about, I think, in total 30 kilos.
That's a huge amount to lose in 6 weeks, isn't it?
It's a huge amount, yeah. So they actually stopped feeding me around the 3rd week as well, because they wanted to let the drugs work, or they were trying to find a solution. They're doing all these trial and error things on me, and I just wanted to get better, and I was like struggling here. I was running to the bathroom, and actually, I think it was in the 3rd week when my parents came. I kind of said, "Can I get a private room with a toilet that's really close, or like in the private room itself?" Because I was in a ward, and I had to walk about 10 meters to go to the toilet, and that was really hard for me when you're going like 12 times, and I had to run because I had urgency as well, so I couldn't.
And you'd be feeling so weak and fatigued with the weight loss.
Yes. And so I told them, I was like, I can't stay here. Can you please get me a private room? So we had to go. Obviously, they agreed, and we went to a private room, and that's when they stopped feeding me as well, and that's probably why my weight went down even more too. So they had to put a catheter in my neck, and
you had TPN for a while.
Yeah. And I was getting, because through the wrist it's only, I think, 800 calories that you can get via saline IV drip, and so they had to increase that. So I think you can get 1600 through the vein in your neck, so they put me on that. And that was an ordeal in itself, because it's really, the doctor has to put a needle through your neck, and it's quite dodgy. It's not the safest thing. And my parents asked the doctor, what's your success rate? And he's like, about 95%.
Oh man!
And they're like, what about the other 5%? And he said that they said, what will happen if something goes wrong? And then he was like, I'm going to have to call the surgeon or someone that can patch him up, and he's going to have to come and do that. I'm going to have to hold the vein and not let the blood come out and stuff. And this was all in gibberish, like not proper English. So my parents were even more concerned. So, and actually, what was really interesting, this is the story from my parents, because I was asleep when he was doing when he was putting the needle inside. The nurse comes out running out the doors, because my parents were outside, comes out running out the doors, starts screaming, and my parents were just shitting themselves, going, oh my God, what's happened? And then she goes to the nurse's ward or the office, and then comes back and says, everything's okay. That was a bit of a scare for them. Yeah, it was a bit of a scare for them as well. But so yeah, as things just went along, I wasn't getting better, and ultimately going about 40 times a day to the bathroom, ended up being about 40 times a day. And, I was so weak that I actually couldn't talk. It was hard for me to open my mouth. I was in nappies, and, the things just got so much worse that we just didn't know what was going on and why I was getting worse. And the doctors, they kept saying that he's not responding to the medications, they'll kick in soon. And my mum specifically asked the doctors, he's been in your care for, such a long time. Why hasn't he got better? And they didn't really have an answer. And the answer was actually surgery. That's what the doc said, that his colon is so inflamed, he's got ulcers now. So it progressed from mild colitis to severe ulcerative colitis in the space of 4 or 5 weeks. And so I had big ulcers in my large intestine, and it was painful, like seriously painful. You cannot believe. When I remember those times, I think, how did I do that? And just how did I go through all that? Because the pain was so significant. I had to take, was it one drug under morphine? It was that painful. And sleeping pills, because I couldn't sleep, and all those other drugs on top of that. So I was on antibiotics, I was on anti-inflammatory drugs, I was on steroids, and that's when they suggested surgery. And my mum said, well, you can't take an organ or piece of his organ out when you haven't been able to do anything else. So she refused the surgery, luckily, because I was just like, just get this over and done with. I was happy to do surgery. I was in that much pain and I was just suffering so much. So that was something that I didn't care what happened. I potentially
just do whatever to start feeling better.
Yeah, and if my mum didn't say no to that, I'd probably be, in a much, much worse situation, obviously. And I would have had to stay in hospital another further 2 or 3 more months because they would have, I would have been in a bag, and then they would have done another surgery to connect, the bowel to the rectum. So that would have been really, really bad. So we wanted to get the hell out of there, actually. So my mum said no, luckily. And they had another solution, which was immunosuppressant drugs. And that helped me a tiny bit. So it reduced my bowels from about 40 to about, 15 to 20. So I kind of got a tiny bit more strength back because I wasn't running to the bathroom so much. I had a little bit of, relief from that. But the pain was still there, the blood was still there, and it was pretty harsh. So what happened then was that my mum, during all this time, was trying to find like anything, right, alternative or cure or whatever. She's typing on Google this whole time, and she was just trying to find something. And this was the strangest thing. So I, because of the immunosuppressant drugs, kind of settling my bowels a little bit, I was still getting like runny diarrhea the whole time. Once they settled, we started to incorporate food back into the diet as well. And luckily my mum found, she typed in Google, is tofu good for you? And obviously being in Japan, that's why she typed it in. And there was a book that came up, and it said Self-Healing Colitis and Crohn's by Dr. David Klein. And she was like, oh my God, what's this? And she ordered it. So we ordered it on Amazon. The book came within 2 or 3 days. So it got shipped from US to Japan. In a couple of days, we got it. We started reading it, and we were like, oh my God, this is the answer. This is what we've been looking for. And we read through it. Like, I don't know, me and Mum were going page by page through it, and we were just like, wow, why haven't we told this information? And why haven't all these other people been told this information? So the book talked about how to heal yourself naturally, or the self-healing body. And the author had ulcerative colitis himself for about 8 years before he started to figure out that diet has a massive role to play. Of course, when we talk to the doctors, diet has nothing to do with it, or they dismiss it.
Of course.
And so, we started to read that book, and then there was a nutritionist that was there at the hospital. I think, dietitian nutritionist. And we kind of talked to her, and we said, hang on a second, the food that he ate before, knowing a little bit of information about plant-based diet, we kind of said that the food that you were feeding me previously didn't work, so how about we incorporate only fruits and vegetables? And the dietitian was just like, well, where are you going to get your protein?
Where do you get your protein?
Exactly. So we just said, well, we can get it from here and here and here, and just saying it, because we didn't really know much about nutrition either. We're just going from the book. And so she said, okay, we can do this. And I think they said, okay, you need some bread. I was like, okay. So they'd give me a bun with butter on it, saying, oh, the butter's the protein, you can have that. And I was like, okay, we'll just do that. And so they also some steamed vegetables, which I needed. And my mum actually bought a smoothie maker and a juicer in hospital. So she'd be making me smoothies.
Good thing you had a private room.
Yeah, exactly.
With all that shenanigans going on.
Very handy. It was very handy to have that. So the nurses actually got into it really well as well. They actually wanted the juices as well. So my mum would make a juice for orders. Me. Yeah, my mum would make a juice for me, and the nurses would have a bit as well. And they'd be like, yeah, this is good for him. This is good for him. And I'm like, well, why didn't you tell me before?
And where's the doctor with all this? So you've got the dietitian/nutritionist of the hospital engaged to some degree. The nurses, well, they're figuring it's obviously doing something good for you. But where's the doctor with all this?
Yeah, well, he didn't really pay attention too much about what I was eating. He was just checking my bloods and obviously coming in every now and then saying, are you feeling better? And in fact, like from when we started doing the smoothies and juices, I had a really like a moment where I started to feel better. Like I had more energy one day, and I was like, hang on a second, this is really good. Like, wow, like I've never felt like this in this whole time. And then I actually started to walk, and that was huge. Next couple of days, I walked past the nurse or the office that they had in the hospital, and they were like looking at me going, how the hell are you walking? Because I was walking with the drip, things poked into my arms and all that stuff. And we obviously started to see the results really quickly, and we were like, wow, this food is amazing.
And you're still on the meds at the same time.
I'm still on the meds. I'm still on the meds. It was only until we started reading the book a little bit more in depth, saying that these drugs are so bad for you, and because I started to feel better, they started to give me the drugs orally instead of through IV. So that was a huge relief for me as well, because if I had it through IV, I wouldn't have been able to do anything, right? So what we then started to realize is that these meds are poisoning me even more, and that's why my body hasn't necessarily got better. So we got rid of the steroids.
Yeah,
got rid
that's
of
a big one.
Drugs. We got rid of the immunosuppressant drugs as well, because I read that it was tacrolimus what they were giving me, and I Googled it, and I was like, this side effect is skin cancer. And I'm like, no, thank you. I don't want that. So luckily I wasn't on those drugs for too long. And I wouldn't recommend anyone do this if they have ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease to get rid of your medication straight away, because you need to talk to your doctor, obviously. But because we were so desperate, we just had to do anything to get out of there. And I think it was a wise decision on our part. As my body started to get better, the doctor was seeing that in my blood results. And throughout this whole time, I did 4 colonoscopies as well, and that was just really, really hard too. It's like, I think the third colonoscopy, he couldn't actually go past my rectum because it was so inflamed that he couldn't put the camera past that point. So that's how bad it was. So the fourth and final colonoscopy that I did was because I was getting better, and he's like, oh, I want to check you now. I want to see your inflammation levels and your ulceration and stuff. So the 1 week that I was on this diet, which was banana smoothies, juices, and steamed vegetables like potatoes, sweet potatoes, pumpkin, carrots, broccoli. 1 week on this diet, and he did a colonoscopy, and he was shocked. The doctor then, gave me the report. I saw it, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And he said, oh, finally, the medication's working. And
I know the kicker here.
Yeah, and we kind of were just like, are you serious? Like, you don't know what's been going on here? Like, we've been like, eating these foods to nourish and soothe the intestines. But none of that was talked about. One of the reasons why we didn't want to say anything was because we didn't want to argue. We'd been there for 6 weeks, and we just wanted to get home.
Yeah.
So my inflammation levels had completely disappeared. They were very, very low. My CRP was at normal level.
Wow, okay.
It went up to, I think, 100 and something, and it dropped to I think under 5. That's what normal is. My ulcers had disappeared, which he was really shocked. There was a little bit of scarring left, and he was like, wow, this is amazing. So he actually discharged me from hospital because of my results. Otherwise, I'd be staying there a lot longer if my colon did not heal.
So just to take a step back, your recovery is just beyond remarkable. I mean, that was from that's such a low point that you were at to that recovery. Let's just recap very quickly. What do you think from the moment you thought, I think something's not right, let's go and get a checkup done, to that acceleration of how quickly you just you just went so backwards with your health? What do you think accelerated that? Was it the medication? Was it the food that was feeding the inflammation and so on? Was it a combination? Was there something else? Because you managed to get out of it so quickly. So what got you in such a fast decline?
Yeah, so let's talk about the initial kind of diagnosis. I think because I got diagnosed with mild colitis, I wasn't that severe early on. I didn't have this disease for such a long time. And I think progressively I got worse because of the food and the medication. My body was, I think, strong enough to get rid of this medication and heal itself while going through the process. And I think that's where when we look at natural hygiene or when we look at self-healing, the body will enact healing process or cleansing processes to get rid of whatever toxic matters inside your body. And so I think my body was already doing that. And the meds are supposed to suppress the body or suppress the symptoms, right? Yeah. So my body refused to do that because I believe that it was strong enough to get rid of those meds on top of that. So it didn't suppress my body. So that's probably why I got so bad. And I think just the medications poisoned me even more. And so it really caused my body to be in a much bigger state of disease. Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why I went so bad really fast. Just because of the pumping me with meds and obviously feeding me the wrong foods as well.
That's right. It was a double-edged sword. You're doubling up on the inflammation as opposed to doubling down on, reducing that inflammation. So with good food and without the ill effects of the meds that you were on.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's why I think that my recovery or coming out of the disease was a lot faster than maybe some other people that go through this with this disease, because I hadn't had it for that long. I hadn't been on medications for years on end, for example. I'd taken the strongest doses, but it was a short period of time. And I guess belief and faith was what carried me as well. I had no other choice. The medical system had kind of failed me, so I was like, I have to do anything that I can to kind of get out of here. And I think that and then seeing those little wins with my digestion helped me get out of a really severe situation.
Yeah,
it didn't end there as well, though. So
yeah,
when I came back to New Zealand, there was a lot going on too, because we didn't really know about nutrition that much, and so I got myself out of a really, really good position when I was in hospital. Obviously, gained a little bit more weight back. Was living normally, but unfortunately for me, I did go back to eating some animal products because I had a lot of cravings. I had turned vegan, obviously, or plant-based overnight when we found the book, and from I think start of August start of August to about November, I hadn't eaten any animal products, and I was craving them because being conditioned 23 years of your life eating animal products, you kind of have some cravings. Yeah. So I went back to eating animal products and quickly realized that that's not a good option for me. So I, got my symptoms back, and I had to do the process again.
It's probably a really important lesson to learn early on too.
Definitely was. This was the biggest turning point for me, and I think this is where my journey really started.
That was the conviction you needed, wasn't it?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was the I guess the way to make me understand that, hang on a second, you don't want to put disease-causing foods inside your body because your body is then showing it to you right now.
Yeah.
And I had to learn the hard way, and that really got to me a lot because, my family wasn't really plant-based at the time. They were eating anything. And I got really jealous. I victimized myself, and I said, why did this happen to me? And why can't I be normal like everyone else? And all these thoughts started coming. So I got really depressed. And so the second time around, when I started this diet, when I started healing myself again, it took me a lot longer because of my mindset. And I really didn't feel good in my mind, and I really just wanted to give up so many times because I wanted to eat all these other foods, and obviously I couldn't. And so that was a struggle for me, and I think this is where the mental game comes in a lot, and it's really powerful. And if you can understand how to accept what you have and understand that this is how your body is going to start healing again, if you don't get that aspect of this healing journey or of natural healing and self healing, it's really hard to move forward. And I found it really hard to move forward because I wasn't as bad as hospital in terms of my physical symptoms, but my mental health was just struggling super bad. And it was hard to turn myself around. And so from when I came back, and after a couple of months from November, it took me about 6 months to really get back on track. So it took a while. And that's when I started to realize that, okay, these foods, and that's when I actually became vegan at that time, because I started to look into the industries, and that was when YouTube started to become bigger in 2012, 2013.
And some more information available. And
So I found some people that were doing plant-based, and I was like, hey, these guys are doing this, and I'm not alone. Because at that time, you are pretty lonely because there's hardly any information, especially in New Zealand. There's hardly any information about plant-based or vegan. And so, I started to encourage myself. I started to really wrap my head around this and go, right, I can do this. And I started to see other people's success stories. Like, I think Chris Beats Cancer on YouTube. That was one of the first YouTube channels I started looking at, because I was like, wow, these people are recovering, or somehow they're doing something, with plant-based foods. And that inspired me. And then Lance Armstrong was a huge inspiration for me. So I got his book and I started reading it. I think it's Not About the Bike.
That's right. That was the first one. Yeah.
So he inspired me a lot from what he went through. I was like, he's gone through way worse than me. So if he can do it, then I can do it as well. And so just picking myself up, listening to people that were just changing my mindset, and instead of being a victim, I started becoming a champion. I started going, I can do this. I've got this, and I've done it before. Why can't you do it again? And so it really helped me, get my mindset right and get out there doing what I loved, which one of the biggest things was mountain biking for me. And I love mountain biking so much that, the urge and the drive to get back out there was something that I wanted to do. And,
and doing all that, did you start noticing a difference in your energy level? And I mean, you talk a lot about mindset, which is so important. And I really love your statement there. Rather than being a victim, you got to be a champion. And it's not just necessarily a champion for others, but a champion for yourself. And once you have that conviction, that sets the foundation. You can only go onwards and upwards from there. But from a physical point of view, did you start noticing, your passion for mountain biking? Did you start noticing, like, hang on, I seem to get to the top of that hill a little quicker, or I can last a little bit longer? Did that start coming through as well?
Correct, for sure, definitely. So I started to. So what I say to a lot of people is that when you have a chronic disease, you're -1. And you have to get to 0 and then to +1. So when you're in a disease state, because you're in that -1, it takes you a while to get from -1 to 0. And then from 0 to positive, that's when you see the effects of a plant-based diet work on you really well. So because I was in that -1 state, I had to get myself to 0. And as soon as I started to get myself onto 0, I then started to get into the positives by doing all these different things and going out and exercising a little bit. Baby steps, obviously, because I was still obviously underweight and I needed to get my weight back up and all that. So that was pretty. I guess the plant-based diet at that point, I didn't see the results that, say, someone that's normal that goes from no disease to plant-based diet. So for me, it was because I had to, reverse the chronic condition and then go on to plant-based diet. So I only saw it started affecting me a bit later when I started to get my body weight back and when I started to really, get my exercise, get my fitness back. That's when I started to really see that, okay, I'm not tired anymore, obviously, when I come back from that walk or from that ride. And that rebuilding process took about 2 months for me. I took it really slow because I didn't, my body's coming out of a pretty severe state. So I needed to really go slow. And so that's when, after I got to that zero and started to see those positives, I really believed in this way of life. And that's when I started to obviously then make YouTube videos and started that whole journey as well. But yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about that new chapter.
That's right.
So done a lot of exciting things since then.
So you and Shakul co-founded the High Carb Health. And what was his sort of viewpoint on this? I mean, seeing his brother go through what you did, where did he stand with all this?
Yeah, he has a pretty interesting story as well. So when I came back home from New Zealand, they obviously came and visited me as well, and they found out about this information obviously because of what I went through. But before they left Australia, they went to McDonald's and had 2 Big Macs each, I think.
It's like last chance.
Yeah, last chance. They're like, okay, well, we're gonna be eating some good food when we get home, so let's just get in this crap. We may not know we eat this again. So they had McDonald's, I think, at the airport in Australia when they flew over, before they flew over. But my brother started doing the juicing as well, and the smoothies and stuff. So they supported me. They wanted to support me, right? So
I was going to say this was to support you, not because he had done his own research at the time.
No.
Yeah.
It was just mainly for support right now. Yeah, at that time it was just support, and obviously my whole family got into it. And for 1 week he felt so bad. He had withdrawals because he used to drink lots of coffee. He's obviously eat a lot of crap food as well, and he thought he was healthy, but he wasn't. He actually probably was unhealthier than me, but I went through the whole hospitalization and things like that. So I kind of joke around a little bit with him in that way that, if it wasn't for hospital, I wouldn't have gone through that. But then again, we wouldn't have been plant-based if I didn't go through that. But he was actually healthier than me before I got sick. So for him, it was actually really important to change his lifestyle too. It wasn't just for me, because he used to have migraines all the time. He used to have really bad digestive issues too, but he just thought that was normal. So they started, doing the diet, doing the plant-based diet, and after 1 week, he was absolutely shocked. He's like, I feel the best I've ever felt in years. And so he was like, this is serious. Like, hang on a second. Like, wow, I need to look into this more. So then he started doing his research as well. And, he came across the plant-based doctors, obviously, McDougall, Esselstyn, Campbell, Barnard. And we started to get into it as well. And we're like, wow, this is amazing. This information is just, it's mind-blowing, because we were in denial, to be honest. How could this be? Like, well, we still want to eat these foods, but we can't because they're damaging to us. Science suggests, these foods are what causes a lot of our disease today, common disease today, like heart disease, diabetes, stroke. And we were just like, wow. And then we realized, like, hang on a second, how come, I've been able to get better? Why is that? And we started looking into the gut as well. Obviously, at that time, there wasn't as much science around gut health. But we kind of knew, we're like, okay, if this diet can reverse these other conditions, then, it's helping me as well. And so then that's when we started to spread the message about whole food plant-based living and all these amazing doctors that have been able to do this on YouTube. So we started High Carb Health. So he was actually the first person to start it. He started the YouTube channel, my brother, and he was like, what I eat in the day when I cook.
So it actually started off as a YouTube channel before it became what it is now.
Correct.
Wow.
Yes,
okay.
Correct.
There you go.
So my brother started it because he was like, well, why not? Why shouldn't we just, spread the message a little bit, and who knows who'll watch, So he started that, and then once he started that, I flew over to Melbourne when I started feeling better, and we did a video together about how to heal colitis in my journey and my story. So what I'm saying to you, and I guess that started picking up, and people started watching it. People were like, oh, I have ulcerative colitis, and I have this, and we were just like, wow, this is crazy. And then people were just like, how did you do this? How did you do that? What did you eat? All these questions.
Yeah.
And obviously we were responding to them as much as we could, getting all these emails as well. So then we decided, hey, why don't we do some studies so that we can get into this and, get a certification so that we can start helping people. And so we also did our studies through David Klein. So the guy who wrote the book has an academy. It's called the Vibrant Health Academy. So he teaches a lot about natural hygiene and the self-healing body and food, what foods to put into the body to give the body the right conditions to do the work. And so basically really, really easy, simple foods like what I ate. And obviously he counseled us and he taught us a lot about colitis and Crohn's and how to coach people. So he was our mentor when we started doing this. And so, we started getting more and more inquiries, and we started putting out more and more content saying that, this food will do this to you. And, I think we were one of the first people in New Zealand to talk about this stuff on YouTube. And so, it just kicked off from there. And we started then talking about this at Go Green Expo in New Zealand, the Green Living Show in New Zealand, because no one else really talked about this stuff. And we were involved with the Vegan Society of New Zealand as well, because we obviously became vegan, and we were like, this is atrocious what happens to the animals. So we became members of the Vegan Society of New Zealand, and they obviously do, the stall at these green living shows and stuff. So we were volunteering at the time, and they got asked to do some talks. And so I started spreading my message that way. And I started spreading the message about how the environment also plays a key role with what you eat. And it just started picking up more and more, and people started to hear about us. And I think majority of our clients actually come from US and Canada, which is funny because you think, okay, being in New Zealand, you get more inquiries.
Your local market, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, but because of YouTube being so obviously Americanized and a lot of people in America watch it, they started seeing our videos and going, hey, this guy's been able to get better and heal himself without medications. And I don't want to be on medications either, because one of the first things that the doctor told me is like, you're going to have to be on medication for the rest of your life. And that was like the first week that I was in hospital, and I honestly thought he was joking, so I started laughing, but he wasn't joking. And I was like, it just hit me pretty hard at that time. I was like, whoa, that's not cool. You're not supposed to be on medication for the rest of your life, that's for sure. And anyone knows that, you shouldn't be on that. So, it gave me a massive shock. That's when I started to really go, whoa, what is this thing? What is this disease? And so when people see you not on medications, it's a big, if people see you thriving and people see you not having any digestive issues and living a good, happy life, not on medication, that's pretty massive. So that's what people started contacting us and going, what did you do? And so we started promoting the book and, telling people, talking about what I went through and how, the mindset, the food that I ate. And I guess moving on, as we started to get, bigger and bigger, more inquiries, we thought, let's support these people that are struggling, because I knew how hard it was to go through this. And, I wanted to get, when I was going through, I didn't obviously have that much support. And I said to Shukul, let's give people the support that I would have wanted when I was going through my journey. So we decided to kind of, coach people and start going and helping other people and giving them our time. And that's when this we said, my brother actually stopped his business. He had a job in Australia, in Melbourne. It was pretty good. He was working for a finance company there, and he dropped everything.
Wow.
Came back to New Zealand. We stayed at home with our family. This took quite a while to obviously gain momentum and get a base or foundation. It took us probably about 3 years to set ourselves up. And luckily we had our parents' help and our parents' support, because my mum and dad obviously started to realize what we're doing, and they go, we'll give you the full support that you need. So obviously living at home, we don't have any expenses, right? So that was huge for us, and that was what we were able to kind of do what we do now because of that initial startup. And so we're definitely very thankful for our parents.
And let's take it a step back. You're doing what you're doing, and you're I was going to say standing, you're probably sitting right now, but because your mum got onto Google, found that magic book, and that's where it all started, didn't it? I mean,
all thanks to tofu.
Yeah. So
tofu, which so many people are scared of, and there we go.
One of my mum's friends actually said to her, "Why don't you write a book on this called 'Is Tofu Good for You?'"
Yeah.
And you know what the irony is that your mum probably thought the same, like most people. Oh, I think tofu is not good for you.
Yeah. I mean, it's astounding how many people think that the soy is really bad for us. But yeah, it's that was the game changer.
I honestly thought with that Googling that you'd get the China study, because that was for me my first book, and that's where I first learned the benefits of soy, as opposed to what I always believed myself. No, tofu, not good, gives you man boobs, affects your hormones, this, that, whatever. So, no, that's what an amazing story. And look, we'll definitely put a link to High Carb Health in our show notes, and people can, I encourage people to go onto the website and read up on your story. And
just to clarify quickly, Shamiz, you don't just work with people who have IBD, do you? You work with all kinds of...
Yes, that's correct. So we have helped people with diabetes, type 2 diabetes specifically, IBS, diverticulitis, mainly digestive issues, because we actually thought, because this was some amazing information that we'd learned, we said, why don't we just try and help everyone, because this diet can do this for so many things. And then we started to go, okay, maybe we should just focus on digestive health. And as soon as we started to focus on digestive health, I think that's when I think more inquiries came through, and we primarily work with people that have gut issues. So whether it's IBS, whether it's gas, bloating, all sorts of these things. I think, we know that, if a really serious condition like ulcerative colitis can be healed, and Crohn's disease can be healed with so many other clients that we've worked with, then something like IBS can also be overcome, and something like diverticulitis can also be overcome, because the body's natural healing power is to be in health, and that's what we forget sometimes, is that the body has the ability to heal itself, and we kind of get scared, and we have all these other things, and then we get influenced by so many other people, so we forget that message. But the body can heal itself.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned Crohn's. I want to touch a little bit on gluten, because it's such a topical thing. But before we get on to that, tell us a little bit about your daily... I mean, I kind of know the answer because I follow you on social media, but for our listeners...
posting delicious food on your
every
Instagram.
single day. But tell us a very short... What are your typical foods that you try and eat, if you do, if that is such a thing for you? Are there particular foods you try and eat every single day, or what are typical foods you like to have on the regular?
Correct. So I've been scarred for life with bad digestion.
Yeah.
So I want the best digestion in the world, and I strive for that, and that's why I eat what I eat. So predominantly I eat a lot of fruit, so lots of smoothies obviously, but when I'm in a place that has lots of fruit, I'm going to be eating lots and lots of fruit. The reason why is because it's the most natural food that we can eat, and that tastes amazing in its natural form. And I think we sometimes forget that, nature gives us a lot of things, and we don't need to necessarily cook something to eat it. And that's why fruit is there.
Yeah.
And it can nourish us with a lot of amazing vitamins and minerals. And so I eat, obviously, a lot of fruit, but I also eat lots of other veggies as well. And, beans, legumes, lentils, tofu, as you said, salads, raw food. So I combine raw food and cooked food together. So I listen to what the doctors have to say, like the plant-based docs saying that these foods are good for you. And I also look at logic and I go, okay, what's our natural diet? What would we eat in nature? We wouldn't eat a raw potato. We'd eat a mango, for example. So I go, okay, well, I'm going to eat the best I can. And so I realized that when I was going through my healing, fruit really helped me a lot to improve my digestion. And the reason why I eat so much fruit now is because I want to wake up in the morning and have impeccable digestion. And that's what I get every single day when I eat these beautiful natural foods.
Now, with a lot of your fruit, you're a big fan of smoothies. Now, is there a particular reason for that? Is that to help with digestibility? Is that the reason why you have, rather than a bowl of fruit salad pieces, you generally go for your smoothies?
Yeah, I guess because it's just easy, it's convenient. You can just chuck everything in a blender and you can blend it up. I know that some people potentially say that you're taking the fiber out of it or whatever, but I think you just got to be smart about it. You've got to eat it slowly. You can't just chug it down. That's why I also make smoothie bowls as well. So you can take a spoon and you can eat your smoothie, eat your blended food. That goes the same with soups, for example. Like we don't complain about soup because it's hot, right? And so we have to take it easy when we eat it. So that process of chewing and digestion is really important. So when you see my smoothies, for example, on Instagram or anywhere on social media, I'm always sipping slowly and actually chewing, because chewing is a massive process. And I make my smoothies sometimes quite chunky with dates in them, so you actually are forced to chew.
And that's a really important point, isn't it? Because digestion starts in your mouth. You're getting all those amylase enzymes and whatnot to help break down the carbs. So that's great tip. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
No. And I actually I do also eat whole fruit as well, but because I'm busy. And also, I don't have time to cut up stuff, and I don't have time to. It's really easy for me to just grab a smoothie or make a smoothie and then sip on it as I work.
And to be fair, smoothies are not like juicing. Smoothies, your fiber is still all there. You're eating everything. It's juicing where you might be extracting components like the fiber and maybe some nutrients that are left behind as well. But smoothies, it's just that. And I know you're a huge fan of dates. I am too. They can be a little bit dangerous sometimes. That pure sugar. I'll have a few of those before I head out for a run, and then. Wish I had a few more in my back pocket. But you're also a massive fan of potatoes.
I am. Starch Solution, Dr. John McDougall.
Yeah.
So that was one of the first books that I read, and he says he is probably one of the best doctors out there. He's done so much work. His work goes back like 20 years. And I think for someone like him, he's done probably the most research out of any of the plant-based docs. And I think for him to say that this particular food is really good for you, I'm going to take his advice.
That's very cool.
He's really great because he's got the research behind him, but he's also got the clinical experience working with the patients for so long. So
Definitely. And that's so important because, a lot of people don't have that experience. A lot of doctors don't have that experience that he does. And so when he's seen people get better on potatoes, the proof is in the potato.
For sure. Hey, you can have potato pudding, so why not? Any particular thoughts, personal thoughts on kumbra, sweet potato, versus your standard potato?
Yes, actually, there has been some information coming out lately that there's, people say that potatoes don't have as much nutrition as sweet potatoes, but there are some potatoes that actually do. I wouldn't be eating your white potato all the time, and saying that there's nothing wrong with that white potato, but there are so many other different varieties of potatoes that you can eat, and my favorite is Agria, so I eat mostly Agria, so that's the yellow or Yukon Gold for people.
Delicious.
Yeah, and they're versatile, right? So you can bake, boil them, you can mash them, you can make a lot of things with them. So no, I love potatoes. And I love sweet potatoes and pumpkins and all starches, really. But I guess the potato is the savoury one, and it's the one that's always going to be the on my plate. That's going to be the most. So.
Apart from animal products and all the junk food that's out there, are there any particular whole foods that you tend to avoid?
I don't avoid any at this point. When I first started this, obviously, it was a bit of a trial and error process in eating beans, because beans is a hot topic when people have gut issues.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think from my experience with so many other clients and from my own experience as well, you need to take it slow with beans. When you have an inflamed gut, you don't want to be eating beans straight away. Now, there is research out there suggesting that fiber is good for you, but that research is not done on patients with inflamed bowels. And so eating these beans can be a little bit harsh, and especially if you don't cook them properly, the lectins in there can.
Well, I was just going to say a hot tip on getting reintroduced for most people with legumes is buy them raw, soak them overnight, and cook them thoroughly. And the difference between those and canned beans makes a huge difference. And one of them is definitely digestibility. And that definitely improves on the bloating.
It's night and day. You need to get the dried beans, you need to soak them, and you need to pressure cook them as well. Pressure cooking is actually, nowadays you've got Instant Pots, you've got hot pots, you've got all those things that, allow you to cook these beautiful vitamin-rich and mineral-rich foods now, and cooking them like that is tastes really good too. So there's nothing really that I don't eat. Obviously, oil is something that I avoid 100% because of what from Esselstyne's research, talking about that. But that's probably the only that I really avoid, and obviously refined sugar. So I keep it whole food, plant-based, no processed, or limit my processed food intake. I'm not going to say no to a pizza or a burger every now and then because that's how you stay sane.
Yes.
But and it brings in the whole social aspect too, doesn't it? So,
It does, definitely. I learned that the hard way because when I first started this, I was pretty anal about all these things. But that kind of got to me, I was just like, just relax. And
it gets to other people as well because, like Emma's just said, from the social aspect, people think, we don't want to invite him because he's so bloody difficult at where we'll go eat. And Emma and I always say this, and it's about balance. And if the majority of your eating is done at home, that's where you've got control. That's where you're eating well. And for once in a blue moon to go to have, like you say, a burger or a pizza or whatever, you got to live a little, right?
You do. It's important that you live a little as well, because otherwise you'll get caught in a prison. And I've been there, and I know what it's like to put myself in that position where I'm not going to try and relax about food. You need to do that. And I think consistency is key. So as long as you're doing all the right things, as you said, at home, I have a rule where if I'm 80 to 90% eating the foods that are whole, I'm going to benefit because, I'm not only looking at my physical health, I'm looking at athletic performance just like yourself. And so I want to be making sure that I avoid those foods when I am training and, trying to get the optimal diet for my recovery because that's right. Huge. And so when I'm in those positions where I'm training for something, when I'm going for a bike ride or something, I will make sure that I do not eat anything that's processed before.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to just bring back to what you were saying before, your starting point is not -1 anymore.
Correct.
So,
And your body has that ability to recover or heal itself. So, if you're feeding the body what it needs and you have that burger with the fries and the processed patty and the fake cheese, and you'll feel ill after anyway because your body's going to say, why are you feeding me this crap? And you're not going to do it again the next day. But again, your body will say, okay, one bad meal, I can rid myself of it, I can recover. It's not going to cause a major inflammatory response. We'll heal from it. So that's why it's okay. Like Emma just said, and like you've said before, we're not starting at -1, and we're probably not even at 0. We're actually at +1. So to be at 0.9 to be at 0.95 to get back to 1 is a lot easier.
Definitely. Well, I think that you make a good point there because you build up your gut, you strengthen your gut enough to handle these foods every now and then. And that goes with anyone. It's not just with gut issues. Like I know people they won't feel good after an oily meal, for example.
I don't anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll know that. And, when you're eating clean, your body is definitely not going to like those processed foods and it's not going to digest them very well.
I'll still have it.
And that's fine. That's where Emma was saying, you need to live a little as well and give yourself that freedom. not so that you're not so anal about food.
Now, talking about, let's go back to what I sort of alluded to, gluten. Now, gluten, it's kind of frustrating because it's, for the most part of it, yes, there's people with, legitimate gut-related concerns, issues like Crohn's disease and so on. But for the most part of it, the fad of gluten-free, I'm a little overweight or this or that, gluten-free. What's your thoughts on, should people actually be avoiding gluten, or, probably a rhetorical question here, focus more on eating whole foods, and if that contains the gluten, that's fine because it's part and parcel of the whole food, as opposed to, refined, processed white flour, white rice, or whatever the case is.
Yeah, well, I'm not against gluten. I eat it myself. But I do think that when you are in that inflamed state, when you have inflammation in your bowels, it's not a good idea to necessarily eat that, because it's harder to digest than, say, starch.
Yeah.
So that's why we recommend building your gut up, by eating the starchy foods like pumpkin, potatoes, sweet potato, and then slowly reintroducing the grains, whether it's wheat or millet or quinoa, because grains are a little bit harder to digest when you have this pre-existing condition. So we recommend not going into the breads, because they're a little bit more processed as well. But first, start off with the soft foods, the fibers that are going to be at ease. And I think starch, the soluble fiber from starch is really, really beneficial for the gut, and it soothes the colon. Same with fruit, and that's why we're so big on fruit, bananas specifically, and papayas, for example. They're just really soothing for the gut. And so you want to eat the foods that are really going to just, when that food passes through you, you want that food to really, soothe, not irritate. And so sometimes grains can irritate people when they're inflamed. So we don't recommend gluten. Now, I think gluten has a bad rap, and I think there was some research done about the pesticides in gluten that was actually more of an issue than the gluten itself.
Because at the end of the day, the gluten is the protein of the grain, isn't it? So,
correct. And I mean, people have been eating this for years.
Yeah.
Without any issues. So,
so the focus is more on the whole grain, the whole wheat, as opposed to the refined, and that's really the message, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah, I found this. I was driving past one of the suburbs the other day, and there was a butcher, and he said gluten-free chicken. And I was like, wow, you are just marketing to these people that are gluten-free, and you're like, well, chicken's gluten-free, isn't it? But when you look at the chicken, it's actually so much worse than the gluten that it's so ironic that this person is suggesting such a food if you're gluten intolerant, because it's not the gluten, it's the majority of the foods that you're probably eating other than the gluten that probably affecting your gut so much. Gluten just gives you that symptom, but I thought that was quite funny, and it was a really good marketing ploy by that butcher, because all these gluten-free people were going to go there.
That's exactly it. I'd be more interested if he actually went and said salt-free, but because we know chickens are really one of the biggest sources of sodium in diet, and one of the reasons. Yeah. So, where to next with you and your brother for High Carb Health? What's on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, we just launched our new website, so obviously go and check that out, www.highcarbhealth.com. But I think more reach. I think this is the biggest thing. Actually, one of the it just happened this morning. Actually, a milestone for us, which we got to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. So
wow,
congratulations!
Yeah, so that was a good little milestone for us. Talking about gut health, and I say to a lot of people that I talk shit all day. So for us, two guys on YouTube talking about shit all day, 10,000 subscribers is not too bad.
That's awesome, guys. Well done.
That's the milestone. But yeah, as much reach as we can get doing things like this, like podcasts, being on connecting with doctors. Obviously, we went to the Nutrition Healthcare Conference last year, I think it was.
Yes, that's where I first came across you guys, and it just blew me away, your presentation. So
that was in Australia as well, wasn't it? And that was the Nutrition Health. We also went to the one in America, the Plantition Project one, and we met all these beautiful doctors. Obviously, all the doctors that we read all the books about, and we were just like so amazed. So we connected with all these doctors and trying to spread the message out there that, because ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease has been, it's like a shy disease. People get embarrassed; they don't want to talk about it. So I want to change that.
Yeah. No, I think it's
definitely on the way.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's an important message, and it's awareness, self-awareness, and being able to spot things early, and why spot it? Why not prevent it altogether? So, when you have stories like this, and yours was just so well documented, you had images of you in hospital. So you're not just standing there saying, hey, look at me, I'm healthy, I've recovered. But you're actually showing that low point you were at, and that's what makes it so much more tangible.
Thanks to Mum once again for taking those photos. She took them without me looking sometimes, but so thankful for her to take those photos.
Your mum had the foresight, I tell you.
Yes,
she had the foresight with all this. So, look, it's amazing what the supportive family can do, hey?
Sure is, yeah.
No, that's awesome. Shamiz, look, we sincerely appreciate you. You're only our second guest on our relatively new podcast now, but it was such a real story that it's why we wanted to get you on early. It's got a powerful message, a remarkable story in terms of how you recovered and what you're doing. What you and your brother are doing now is huge. And I first saw you present 2.5 years ago. I wasn't even plant-based then. I don't know what drew me to your presentation. I don't know if it was more the carb, the high carb sort of name, as opposed to I've got a disease, which I did. I was only vegetarian at the time. But I've been following you guys for a while, and it's amazing what you guys do. And we can only wish you the best and go bigger and get stronger. Yeah,
likewise. Yeah.
And everyone out there who hasn't checked out your Instagram yet, they have to see all the food that you eat.
Yeah.
No, look.
Likewise, guys.
Yeah. No, so look. So thank you so much for opening up. You really did give a little bit more insight into what I thought I knew about your story, but just that behind the scenes component just really puts it all into perspective. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to your brother as well. You're doing amazing work. So
thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Lentil Intervention Podcast. If you found this interesting, make sure you subscribe and share it with your friends.